I was born in April 1918. My father was a miner and traveled around Virginia to work in the mines. When I was just 8 months old, my parents moved to the high coal camps of West Virginia. Both my parents became ill with the flu pandemic in November and December of 1918. Miraculously, I did not contract it. My mother became sick first, and then my father had to stay home and take care of her because there were no doctors in the area and many others in the camp were caring for their own families. My father said there was many a night he thought my mother wouldn't live. Then, just as she was recovering, he fell ill. My father had it worse, and it was all my mother could do to take care of my father and take care of me in her weakened state. My parents told me that one morning, mother had gone to the kitchen for something, and I was left in the room in my baby bed with my father next to the wood stove for warmth. I woke up crying, and my father, delirious and confused from a high fever, ran over and grabbed me up, thinking I was a wild cat screaming and attacking his family. He had just lifted me over his head to throw into the fire when my mother ran into the room and grabbed me away from him. The family survived, and I'm thankful that my mother had enough strength that day to save me too.
My grandmother, Tekla Garbach, who had been born in Poland, came to America alone in 1905. She saved money cleaning and doing dishes until she had enough to send for her brothers and then for my grandfather, Joseph, who came over on September 27, 1907. They bought a farm in Wisconsin, but after losing the farm, the family moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota. The couple had 4 kids, Jenny, George, Annie, and Mike. My father, George, was the second child born in 1913. In October 1918, my grandfather contracted the flu. He was seen by a doctor on the 17th and died 5 days later. My Auntie Vicky said that he was very ill and was told to go home and stay in bed. However, being the breadwinner and one who felt very strongly about supporting his family, he went back to work too soon. He worked outside in a junkyard and developed pneumonia. Auntie said the weather was cold and rainy at that time of year. From what I read about this particular strain of influenza, most people passed away from pneumonia, and I suspect that my grandfather had it all along. Auntie never said if anyone else in the family had the flu, nor did my dad ever say, perhaps because he was only 5 years old at the time. My grandmother, who had just had a baby a month before her husband died, was a tough Polish woman who now had a family to support. She saw an advertisement in the newspaper from a man looking for a wife and mother for his kids. She married him and had 3 more children. I hadn't really known about the 1918 flu pandemic until I got older and started doing research, especially after finding out that my grandpa died from it. Nobody ever talked about it. What I learned is that we do need to take influenza seriously if ever there is talk of a breakout.
In 1918, my mother, Judy McLaughlin Sigerson, was 2 years old. Although she was very young at the time, the 1918 flu epidemic was so traumatic that many of the events are still vivid in her memory. Judy lived with her mother and father in East Chicago, Indiana, where my grandfather was working as a foreman in a steel mill. The epidemic in East Chicago became so bad, there were so many deaths and very sick people that my grandfather put Agnes, Judy, and her younger sister on a train back to Oil City, Pennsylvania, where my grandparents had grown up. They went to stay with Agnes's parents because the epidemic had not yet hit Oil City. After a time in Oil City, the epidemic did strike there, and it became so bad that there was a flu-related death in every house on the block. So Agnes gathered up her daughters and took them on a train back to East Chicago, apparently without notifying Art. In the meantime, beknownst to Agnes, Art had been stricken with the flu and was at home in bed very, very sick and weak with no one to take care of him. When Agnes opened the door to their house, Art realized who it was and shouted, "Don't let the children come in the room." However, little Judy had not seen her father in a few months, and before Agnes could stop her, she shot into the bedroom and covered Art with hugs and kisses. Scared and horrified, Art insisted that Agnes literally bathed Judy in Listerine. In the next weeks, Judy and her sister were forced to frequently gargle with Listerine, which they were not very happy about. With a lot of loving care from Agnes, Art eventually recovered. No one else in the family became ill with the flu. For the rest of his life, Art credited Listerine with saving his family, and I remember him gargling with it every day.
I was taught from a very young age that evil wasn't born, it was created. Lurking around every street corner with the intention to possess its next victim. Sometimes it was only a matter of seconds till the battle was over, evil reigning victorious. Other times, with the true fighters who knew of evil, it wasn't just one battle. It was war. My parents used to tell me stories back when they fought evil, about a man who was consumed by it. Evil coursed through his veins, yet he never showed it. I remember meeting him when I was small. I liked him. Unlike other children who were told the basic safety rules of stranger danger, look both ways before crossing the street, and never eat the yellow snow, my parents taught me about evil. How to sense it stalking someone. How to tact, thought, fed, and never slept. But most importantly, how to know when it won the war. That's why Uncle Earl left. I'll never forget that man, the one from when I was small, how his icy blue eyes seemed to stare straight into my soul. He seemed to know everything and somehow would always magically appear when I sensed evil. It's like he created it. Growing up, I swear I attended every school in the country before my parents decided to homeschool me. The longest we stayed in a spot was 3 months. I distinctly remember because I thought it was okay to finally have friends. That was a mistake. The day after I had my first friend over, Abigail, we moved. I remember it was odd, hearing my mother mumble under her breath how he had found us again. I still don't know the he she was referring to, but I do remember Abigail had the prettiest eyes. I never knew his name, the man with the icy blue eyes. But when I turned 10, I gave him a name. Once I started calling him Liam, people stopped giving me looks. You seem less crazy when somebody who nobody else but your parents can see has a name. It's like they suddenly gained the ability to see him. To see evil. When we were living in Arizona, our neighbor was known for holding grudges over the pettiest things. It wasn't until he came banging on the front door with a gun that I experienced evil anger. Dad was in the hospital for a week. He insisted he was fine, but I knew he was scared. And I'd never seen him scared before. Evil has a way of doing that. Liam was there that night, the night with the neighbor. Once the yelling started, he told me to hide somewhere where I wouldn't see the door. I hid in the closet, crouched down, so I could see the shadows of people's feet. That's how I knew Liam helped Dad. And that's when I began to question if everything my parents taught me about evil was right. I was never taught to see good in the world, to be optimistic. I was trained to find evil. Maybe that's why it was so hard. My parents were upset. They were convinced evil had gotten a hold of me. My grandparents spent the next week with us. Talk of a good world wasn't allowed. Grandma commented on how my eyes seemed lighter, and Mom quickly changed the subject. For someone my parents swore up and down was evil to the bones, Liam had an interesting insight on my new view of the world. He didn't treat me like I'd gone crazy. He actually seemed relieved. The more I learned about good, the more nervous and upset my parents seemed to be. Suddenly, the world seemed brighter and I wasn't on alert all the time. I relaxed for the first time in my life. Lessons increased with my parents, but I soon discovered that they didn't have all the answers. Liam disappeared one day, and I thought my parents would be ecstatic. My dad panicked, and my mom nearly fainted. They kept muttering about how he had finally succeeded, how he'd gotten a hold of me. The next morning, they were gone, leaving nothing but a note that said, "Look in the mirror." My eyes that were once so dark they could have been made from coal were icy blue. Uncle Earl showed up. He was happy. I'll never forget what he said. "Congratulations on winning the war."
Tonight, I had a bad dream. Usually, when I get scared, my mommy knocks on the wall so I feel okay again. Last year today, Mommy died. It was an accident. I miss you, Mommy. Dad? Dad! 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 Mommy? No! No, I can't go. I have to stay here. No. No. I can't. I have to sleep. I have to. You're not real. You're not real. Oh. You have to leave. I have to move on.
back now!
I'm not going anywhere! I won't play!
Batten down the hatches! Loosen the sails!
Severus, we need to turn! We're going to pickle off! Severus, please!
Brace for impact! Priscilla!
Come drink and be merry, primary weary brave, for we met
I love so well. For style and for beauty there is none can excel. Mm-hmm.